Hey everyone, Rick here, and folks, welcome back to another unit review for, oh, you guessed it, Battlefields of Mana. Now, folks, I was almost thinking about doing this one last because it's probably the most exciting mercenary, but I just couldn't contain myself any longer. Folks, here is the Giant, holding a door as a shield. It is huge. I mean, just take a look at it compared to a great sword. This guy is absolutely gigantic, and the stats reflect it. So again, he's a mercenary. What does that mean? Well, unlike core units of the Lunar Knights or the Regal Guard, where you can have up to 4 of them in your army, these mercenaries, number one, you have to earn, and number two, you can only include 1 of each of them in your army. Now, what do I mean by you have to earn them? Well, you have to play against them and beat them, and then, for all future battles, you then have the option of including them in your army. So what does that mean? Well, your opponent will create an army of Marauders and include the mercenary that you want to win, and then beat that army with an army of your own creation of Lunar Knights or Regal Guard, and then you'll be able to use that, for example, Giant in your army from then on in all future battles. So in general, mercenary units like this are a little more bang for your buck just because you have to go through hell to get them, and you can only include 1 of them. So why might you want a Giant? Well, let's just take a look at these stats. 8 attack dice in close combat. It has a +1 in melee, so it does have a ranged ability. Now, we'll talk about that in a second. But in melee, those 8 attack dice are all +1. Armor of 3, even though he's not wearing too much, just imagine he's hard to hit, or when you do hit him, you have to use extra force. So armor of 3 kind of abstractly resolves that. So only 4s or better will hit him. Defense, he has +1 to all his defense dice and the ability to parry. So if he doesn't block your attack with his +1 to all his defense dice, any defense dice left over, he can re-roll those, and the parry ability gives him the ability to block any attack dice if he rolls 6s on those re-rolled defense dice. Now, the range is 12. However, he doesn't necessarily have a ranged attack. He has a Catapult special ability, which we'll talk about in a second. Movement of 4 inches, so he can either move 4 and do a close combat attack, or forego any combat and move twice a turn to move up to 8 inches. His initiative is +3, so in close combat, when rolling to see who goes first, the Giant adds 3 to the result of his D6 initiative die. He has 12 points of health. Think of that as a full unit of figures, 6 figures with 2 HP each, that's 12 points. Well, he also has 12 points of health. Collision and Catapult special ability. So Collision, just like several cavalry units we've seen, if he moves into contact with an opponent, regardless of whether he is going to take a combat action that turn or not, just for moving into contact with an opponent, he gets a collision hit. So roll a d6, and he does that many unmodified attacks to that unit. Unmodified meaning he doesn't get the +1, but he still gets up to 6 attacks just for moving into contact with an opponent, and then Catapult. That's right. He acts as a catapult just like a siege engine. I don't have my template with me, but it's a 3-inch round template with a hole in the middle. His minimum range just means the edge of the template can't be overlapping his base at all, but he can minimally put it right around him or up to 12 inches away. He then rolls the scatter die to see if it moves away or if it hits. If it moves away, he will roll to see how far. Now that roll to see how far die may say that it misfired, which means he basically dropped the boulder on himself. Imagine him picking up a boulder. That's why he has his catapult ability. He picks up a big rock and chucks it. But if he drops it on himself, if he misfires, There's a whole table of results that may happen. You'll roll a d6 and consult the table. But otherwise, if it diverts somewhere, move the template wherever it diverted. Anything under the hole, and this goes for if it does direct hit as well, anything under the hole takes 8 attack dice. Now, they're not +1 like it says here it says +1 in melee, because the catapult special rules apply to him as well. And the catapult already says that it's a +1. So he does get +1 to his catapult as well. No line of sight is required as well. So he can chuck that boulder basically anywhere. 8 dice, they're all +1. No special abilities can be used either for the defender, so it's a hugely powerful attack. And anything that's underneath the rest of the template takes shrapnel hits, essentially, and that's just a d6 number of unmodified attacks. So yeah, he has incredible attack ability in close combat, or he's also a mini catapult, essentially. How much does that cost? Well, 8. Think of it this way. The siege engine itself only has 6 HP, and sure, it has a longer range, but it costs 6. This is like a way more mobile catapult that can also hold its own in close combat, has 12 HP, all these incredible stats, and costs 2 extra points for 8 points. So it's very expensive. In fact, I think it may be the most expensive unit in the entire game. Yeah, it is, in fact. 8 points for the giant is the most expensive unit, single figure monster hero unit, no matter what. It is the most expensive at 8 points, but it is very much worth it. All right, folks, that is it for the giant. I hope you are impressed with it as much as I am. Thank you all so much for watching. I do truly appreciate it, and until next time.